Hey everyone, welcome to Judging for the Win. I'm Dave, and this is my daily ruling. Amy sits down at her table to start playing her match against Natalie. Meanwhile, Nick sits at the next table and starts playing against Adam. Partway through the round, a judge assesses Amy a penalty and discovers something unusual. It seems that Amy and Nick have inadvertently sat at each other's tables and started playing a match against the opponent that was meant for the other. What is the appropriate infraction, penalty, and fix? I remember hearing this question when I first started out as a judge and thinking to myself, boy, there's not really a great way to resolve this, is there? Several years later, and I'm still saying the same thing. We'll start with the official solution at competitive rel. Technically, both Amy and Nick are guilty of not showing up to their assigned table to play their match. In other words, tardiness. The general penalty for tardiness is a game loss, or in cases where 10 or more minutes have elapsed on the match clock since the start of the round, a match loss. Now, this is, of course, a really big feels bad, and there's a lot of things that have started out as a game loss but turned into a warning or something less severe over my time as a judge, including accidentally drawing too many cards or failing to reveal a morph creature at the end of a match. So let's talk about what we might do differently at regular rel, since we have a little bit more latitude there. One solution that comes to mind pretty readily would be to manipulate the pairings of the match so that Amy and Nick have the opponents that they actually played against. I'll give you that this does seem to be the cleanest solution available. However, it isn't ever a good idea to manipulate match pairings as a scorekeeper, and this definitely does go against Wizards' sanctioning rules. If you get caught doing it, you or your store might end up in trouble. So don't do this one, okay guys? Another thing you might come up with is, okay, we'll let Amy and Nick start playing their assigned opponents, and maybe they'll finish in the time that's left in the round. That would be great, and if that happens, then we'll let that result stand. But we'll give them the caveat that since they were late, the opponent will get a win by default instead of a draw at the end of the round, if they haven't finished yet. Now, that sounds okay, but there's a couple of problems. First of all, sometimes matches end in a draw anyway, so by precluding this from being a possibility, we're kind of manipulating how things would go in a real tournament if the mistake hadn't happened. That's not terrible, but the other really big issue that I see with this one is that if you tell a player all they need to do to win is hang on for 25 minutes, well, let's just say they might slow down their pace of play a little bit and think their options through really carefully. In my opinion, the chances that something goes wrong off of this is a lot more than the chances that we get a real result in whatever amount of time is left. You know your player base better than me, but this is definitely an issue that I could foresee. So, in the end, even at regular rel, I don't see any solution that sticks out to me as being markedly better than the official one, even though this is something I would love to see change. Finally, a couple of notes before I sign off. First of all, if you're concerned about this sort of thing happening to you in a real tournament, I can't stress enough the importance of checking the results slip at the beginning of the round when the judge gives it to you to make sure that your name appears next to the table that you actually sat at. This is the cleanest way to avoid any kind of these problems, and it's something that I don't see a lot of players doing right now. Another thing is I'd like to talk about why the penalty is so stiff for tardiness. It's certainly something that happens all the time at all levels of play, and for as easy as it is and as common as it is, you would think that we would want something a little bit less severe than a game loss. The reason the penalty for tardiness is so severe isn't because this is a difficult infraction to commit, or you could get a really big advantage from doing it, or it would be really easy to get away with it. Of course, none of those are true. The real problem is that tardiness significantly affects the tournament. We've all been there before, where we're sitting waiting for the next round to start as the previous round goes 10, 15, 20, or even more minutes after when it was supposed to finish. Can you imagine how bad the problem would be if we were any more lenient on tardiness than we are now? And so, as judges, we found that this problem is going to be an issue whether we penalize it harshly or not. So the best case scenario, the only real practical workable one, is to make it so that the disruption caused to the tournament is minimized, because at least that way everybody will get playing Magic a little bit faster. And that's all I have today. How did you do? Can you come up with a solution that you like better than the official one? I'd love to hear about it. Join me again tomorrow for another Daily Ruling, but until then, I hope you have a great day.